Hi there and welcome to Reddit Confessions. This isn't the kind of story you expect to begin with a sandwich and end with the sound of your own breath catching in your throat. But here we are. Let's skip the introductions. No, hi. I'm X. She's Y. We've been married Z years. None of that matters when your reality drops dead in the middle of a weekday cafe. Because last Tuesday, I walked into a tiny restaurant I'd never been to before and accidentally attended my own emotional funeral. It wasn't supposed to go this way. I was just trying to be kind to my stomach. That was it. It had been a long morning. Numbers that didn't add up, calls that didn't end, and a dull ache behind my eyes like someone had stuffed a paperclip into my brain. I left the office, hoping a quiet place and an overpriced turkey wrap might help. The place I picked was called Eden's Fork. Never been there before. It looked peaceful. Brick walls, plants hanging from the ceiling, indie music playing just loud enough to make you feel like your life was curated. I stepped inside. The guy behind the counter nodded. I ordered. Saturday. Waited. And then I saw her. She walked in 3 minutes after me, my wife, in her gray office blazer with that perfect posture. Except, she wasn't alone. She was with him. No hesitation. No scanning the room. She didn't even notice me. They walked right past my table, laughing. He placed a hand gently on her lower back as he pulled the chair out for her. She smiled. It was a smile I hadn't seen in months. Not directed at me, anyway. It was the kind of smile that belonged in candlelight, not daylight. And it wasn't mine anymore. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't even blink, I think. I just sat there, clutching my receipt, trying to understand how I had ended up as an extra in the movie of my own marriage. She sat with him 3 tables over. Close. Familiar. Leaning in. Their knees touched. She said she had a team check-in lunch today. I guess this guy was the team. I watched her tuck her hair behind her ear like she always does when she's nervous. Except this time, it looked flirty. She leaned closer when he spoke. She reached across the table and brushed something off his shirt. Do you know what it feels like to be invisible while watching someone betray you in real time? It's not like the movies. No dramatic music. No sudden rage. Just silence. Tight, deafening silence. Like the air forgot how to be air. I left before they saw me, but not before I snapped a photo. I don't know why I took it. Maybe because I knew she'd deny it. Maybe because I didn't want to second-guess my own memory. Maybe because, somewhere deep down, I needed proof that this pain was real, that I wasn't just spiraling. That night, I didn't say anything. She came home late, said, "The meeting went long, sorry babe," and kissed me on the forehead. I nodded, smiled, said nothing, but inside, something died. Hi again and welcome back to Reddit Confessions. If you're here after hearing how I accidentally discovered my wife was spending her team lunch, tangled in quiet conversation with a man who wasn't me, buckle up. This part is where the lies start to unravel, and not because I wanted them to, but because she insisted on dragging me deeper into them. Let me be clear, I wasn't looking for drama. I'm the kind of guy who apologizes to baristas when they spell my name wrong. I wanted to believe there was a clean explanation. Maybe this guy was new on the team, maybe they were talking strategy, maybe the hand on her back was just a mistake. People do weird things with body language, right? But that photo I took kept staring at me from inside my phone like it was waiting to punch me in the chest again. Her expression in it wasn't neutral. It wasn't professional. It was lit up. Lit up in a way I hadn't seen in forever. Still, I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. I know, weak. Cowardly, maybe, but I kept thinking, what if I'm wrong? And then immediately after, what if I'm not and she lies to my face? And somehow that second one scared me more. On Thursday morning, she woke up early, humming while she put on her makeup. She kissed me on the cheek, said, "Let's go out this weekend. Just us." I wanted to throw my phone at the wall. Instead, I nodded like a fool. By Friday, I had talked myself into a corner. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I kept staring at that photo in my gallery like it might change. But he was still there. His sunglasses on the table. Her hands folded too close to his. My entire stomach turning into static. That night, I finally asked her, carefully, like I was walking through a minefield that was actually my own house. Hey, how was the team lunch Tuesday? She didn't even blink. Oh, it was good. Nothing exciting. Same old. No hesitation. Just smooth, practiced deceit. I felt the air leave my lungs in this weird, silent way, like I was deflating from the inside. I didn't say anything else. I just nodded. I couldn't even form a follow-up question. She smiled and went back to scrolling through her phone while eating pretzels like nothing had just cracked open between us. But something had. That night, while she was in the shower, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I airdropped the photo from my phone to my laptop and printed it. Just one copy. I folded it carefully, slid it into a plain white envelope, wrote her name on the front like a kid preparing a letter to Santa, except I wasn't hoping for toys. I was hoping for honesty. Saturday morning, I left it on her nightstand and went for a walk. I didn't leave a note. I didn't send a text. I didn't even take my phone. I just walked to nowhere in particular with my hands in my pockets and my mind racing in 1,000 directions that all led to the same feeling. Betrayal so quiet it screamed in my ears. When I came home, she was sitting at the kitchen table, the envelope in front of her, unopened. Her eyes were red, but she hadn't cried. I know what she looks like when she cries. Mascara tracks, trembling lips. This wasn't guilt. This was fear. The kind of fear that comes when the curtain finally falls and the audience doesn't clap. I sat down across from her. She didn't speak first. I didn't either. For nearly 2 full minutes, we just sat there, like chess players waiting for the other to blink. Finally, she opened the envelope. She stared at the photo like it might disappear. It's not what it looks like, she said, too fast, like she'd been rehearsing it. I didn't react. I think that's what scared her most. She kept going. It's complicated. He's just a friend from an old job. We were catching up. That's all. I stayed silent. She leaned forward. Derek, say something. I asked the only question I could manage. How long? She paused. That half-second of silence told me everything. Not long, she whispered. Maybe 2 months. But it didn't mean anything. I nodded. She tried to explain. Said she was feeling neglected. That our marriage had gone cold. That she didn't plan for it to happen. It just did. You ever hear someone tell you they didn't mean to destroy you? That the affair was an accident? That it somehow just grew out of nothing? Like love is a weed that shows up uninvited and takes root in people's lives by mistake? She asked if we could go to counseling. Said she didn't want to lose me. And maybe I'm weak. But part of me still wanted to believe her. But I didn't give her an answer. Not then. I told her I needed space. Told her I couldn't look at her the same way until I figured out whether I was seeing my wife or just a good actress. That was 4 days ago. And tomorrow I'm meeting the man from the photo. Yeah, that's real. She doesn't know I found his name. I took a photo. She lied about it. And then she confessed just enough to keep me from completely walking out the front door. But the thing is, I'm not good at ignoring things. I never have been. So when she told me he was just a friend, I did the one thing I thought I'd never have the spine to do. I found him. It's terrifying what you can discover when you stop pretending you don't see the signs. All I had to do was zoom in on the photo, notice the restaurant's reflection in his sunglasses. It showed a partial logo of the gym across the street, and that was enough. A little scrolling, a little reverse image checking, and I landed on a local gym's Instagram page. There he was, Coach Derek W. Charming, fit, confident, and surrounded by women in yoga pants giving him fire emojis in the comments. I didn't tell Natalie I was going. I didn't know what I was going to say, or what I was even hoping to hear. Maybe I wanted him to admit it. Maybe I wanted to look him in the eyes and see if he felt like a villain. Or maybe, deep down, I wanted to find out that he didn't know she was married. That would have been easier to stomach. Like this was just one-sided. A mistake. A misfire. The gym was exactly what you'd expect. Loud music. Smell of sweat and artificial mint from cleaning spray. Dumbbells clanking like background gunfire. I stood there in my work shirt, clearly not there for leg day, and asked the receptionist if Derek W. was available. I told her I had a question about private sessions, lie number 1. She smiled, called him over the intercom. And then he appeared. Exactly like the photo. Tank top, confident smile, that jawline that could cut drywall. I hated him instantly, not just because he was with my wife, but because he looked like someone who knew he could take whatever he wanted. He extended a hand. "You here for training?" I shook it. "No, I'm Derek." He blinked. That name meant something to him. A little stutter in his body language. It was small, but I caught it. Cleared my throat. "I'm Natalie's husband." He didn't even pretend to be surprised. He didn't fumble. He didn't panic. He didn't apologize. He just sighed like someone who got caught speeding and knew there was no point denying it. "Right," he said. "I figured you'd show up eventually." That hit harder than I expected. "Then you knew she was married," I said. "And you still." "She told me things were bad," he interrupted. "That you two were basically roommates. That she hadn't been happy in years." I swear I nearly blacked out. My fingers clenched so tightly I thought I'd snap my own knuckles. He said it so casually, like he was explaining a parking ticket. I asked him how long it had been going on. He looked me right in the eye. 6 months. 6. Not 2 like she told me. Half a year of secret lunches, late-night texts, work events, and God knows what else while I was making her tea and rubbing her feet when she said her days were long. Then he dropped the final blow. "Look, man, I'm not here to mess up your life, but Natalie was the one who kept this going. I even tried ending it once. She told me you were emotionally unavailable, that she needed passion. And yeah, I gave it to her, but it's not just on me." I stood there, blinking at him, stunned that he could recite all that with the same tone someone would use to read a weather report. I didn't punch him. I didn't scream. I didn't cause a scene. I just turned and walked out, and I cried in my car like a child, because I realized something horrible. She had rewritten me to justify replacing me. I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being edited. She'd taken the version of me that stayed up folding laundry, the guy who left notes in her lunchbox when she used to smile at them, the guy who forgave small cold silences, and turned me into a villain to someone else just to feel okay about what she was doing. I drove around aimlessly for 2 hours. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept hearing his voice in my head. She needed passion. And maybe she did. But why didn't she ask for it? Why didn't she tell me before turning me into a ghost in my own marriage? I came home that night and she was on the couch watching a show, feet tucked under a blanket, like it was just another evening. She smiled when I walked in. Smiled. I said nothing, but something in me clicked. I'm done playing quiet. I'm done being rewritten. So far, you've seen me stumble into a truth I wasn't supposed to find. I caught my wife, Natalie, having lunch with another man, Derek, and she lied. I confronted him, and he confirmed it all. 6 months. Intimate. Rewritten history. And now, I'm no longer wondering if I was betrayed. I'm trying to figure out what kind of man I've become while it happened, because lately, I don't recognize myself in the mirror anymore. Let me take you to Sunday night. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't comfort you but crawls across your skin like a warning. Natalie was in the shower. I was sitting at my desk, staring at an open Word document, trying to process everything I'd heard, felt, and swallowed down over the past week. I didn't know what I was doing at first. My fingers just started typing, and once I began, I couldn't stop. It wasn't a breakup letter. Not exactly. It was more like a eulogy. Not for her. For me. For the man I used to be before I found out that the person I trusted most had slowly, quietly turned me into a stranger in his own story. I wrote about the first time I saw her in that gray blazer, the same one she wore the day I saw her with Derek. I wrote about how beautiful I thought she looked. How I used to call her my hurricane, because she changed every room she walked into. I wrote about the dumb little things I remembered. How she always double-knotted her sneakers but never tied her robe. How she used to hum the wrong lyrics in the shower and never once corrected herself. I remembered the way she'd fall asleep mid-sentence if we were lying on the couch, and I'd have to carry her to bed even when she insisted she was still awake. And then I wrote about now. I wrote about the way her laughter changed. how it became polished, polite, distant. I wrote about the empty seats across from me at dinner, the texts that never came, the nights she turned over instead of toward me, the absence that became our third roommate. And finally, I wrote about the moment I saw her with him. I described every detail. Her hair, her hands, the way she looked at him like he was a secret she was proud to keep. I described the exact second my stomach folded into itself and I realized she hadn't just cheated on me physically. She'd emotionally deleted me. It was 5 pages. 5 pages I never planned to print. But I did. I folded them into a blank envelope, walked upstairs, and placed it on her pillow. Then I left the house. I didn't have a plan. No dramatic exit. No packed bags. I didn't even take my charger. I just got in my car and drove to the one place that always made sense when life didn't. My brother's garage. It's a mess of tools, wires, and old projects he never finishes. But it's quiet, safe, and he doesn't ask questions until I'm ready. I stayed there for 2 days. Didn't answer her calls. Ignored her texts. I needed her to sit with it, really sit with it, and realize I knew everything. That her version of the story had already burned to the ground. And that this time, I wasn't going to stand in the ashes with a broom and a hopeful smile. On the second night, she sent me a voice message. I didn't listen. I still haven't. I don't know if I ever will. Some things sound too much like manipulation when spoken aloud. But then something happened I didn't expect. My brother's wife, Olivia, knocked on the garage door around 10 p.m. She looked nervous. She handed me a small manila envelope. She came by, Olivia said it was important. I took the envelope in silence, opened it slowly. Inside were 3 things: a photo of me and Natalie from 5 years ago, clipped from a magazine spread we accidentally ended up in during a local feature on couples and small businesses. We were laughing mid-conversation. We looked real. A folded receipt from Eden's Fork dated 2 weeks prior. The same place I found them, showing payment for 2 meals. A note, just 1 line, handwritten. I didn't expect to fall, but I did. And now I've ruined everything. No apology, no explanation, just an acknowledgement of destruction. And the worst part? It almost made me feel sorry for her. Almost. If you've made it this far, you already know. This isn't just a story about a man catching his wife cheating. It's about the quiet unraveling of trust, of identity, of the 1,000 little lies that sound like affection until you realize they were distractions from the truth. After finding out my wife had been seeing another man, lying to my face for 6 months while smiling like nothing had changed, I left her a letter that wasn't meant to fix anything. It was just meant to make her look. Now it's time to face her. I came home on a Tuesday. The sky was overcast, that sickly gray where even the clouds looked tired. I drove the long way, half hoping the road would find a reason to detour. Didn't. When I pulled into our driveway, the porch light was on, even though it was still daylight. That was her thing. She always turned it on too early, just in case. It used to feel sweet. Now it just felt eerie, like the house itself was trying to pretend everything was still normal. I opened the front door and didn't even have to call out. She was already there, sitting on the edge of the couch, elbows on her knees, her phone face down on the coffee table like she was trying to prove something. No wine, no mascara-stained tissues, just silence and the weight of something enormous pressing against the air. She stood when she saw me, barefoot, sweatshirt, hair tied up, no makeup. The same woman I used to wake up beside on slow Sundays. But this time her eyes were different. Not red from crying, not pleading, just empty, like someone waiting for a verdict they already knew was coming. Neither of us said anything at first. I walked past her into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and stood there pretending to look for something. Water, leftovers, an excuse not to speak. Then I closed it and leaned against the counter. She broke the silence. I read the letter, she said softly, her voice barely holding steady. I nodded. I figured. She took a shaky breath. You meant every word? I wrote it, I said. Didn't I? She looked down. That moment, that exact gesture. hit me harder than any shouted apology ever could. Because it wasn't defensive. It wasn't performative. It was defeated, like she'd finally run out of stories to hide behind. "I didn't plan to hurt you," she whispered. And there it was. The line every betrayer thinks is a lifeline. I didn't plan to. As if intentions can undo impact. As if not planning to shatter someone still makes you innocent after you've watched them bleed. I didn't answer her right away. I just stared at her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask why. I wanted to go back to 3 years ago when she used to run to the door when I got home, laughing, pulling me into that ridiculous sway dance we did in the kitchen. But we weren't those people anymore. I finally spoke. "You told him I was emotionally unavailable." Her lips parted like she wanted to deny it. Then she closed them again. That was all the answer I needed. I kept going. "You didn't just lie to me. You turned me into someone else to make what you were doing feel acceptable." Her eyes filled with something I couldn't name. Not regret. Not guilt. Something more pitiful. The realization that there was no good version of herself left in this story. "I didn't know how to talk to you," she said. "You always listened, but you never reacted. You were so passive. It made me feel invisible." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Passive? I asked you a dozen times over the past year if something was wrong. You said no. Every single time." "I was scared," she said, eyes wide. "No," I replied. "You weren't scared. You were comfortable. Comfortable enough to lie while I trusted you. That's worse." She tried to step toward me. "Please, just..." "No." I put my hand up. "You don't get to please me anymore." We stood in silence for what felt like hours. Every tick of the wall clock reminded me how much time we'd wasted pretending we were okay. She looked like she wanted to speak again, but there was nothing left to say that hadn't already been shredded between us. I finally asked, "Are you still seeing him?" Her hesitation was so slight, it made the answer louder than if she'd screamed it. That was it. I walked upstairs, grabbed the duffel I had packed at my brother's, came back down, set my house key on the table. "You can keep the porch light on," I said. "But I won't be the one coming home." She didn't follow me out, didn't call my name, didn't cry. She just sat back down on the couch, alone, staring at the spot where we used to laugh together. And I walked out. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with the cold clarity of someone who had nothing left to rescue. But the story's not over yet. I didn't scream. I didn't plead. I simply told her I was done. I left my key on the table, packed my bag, and walked out the door. I thought that was the end. But life has this nasty habit of handing you more story when you think the last page is turned. Because I went back, just for a minute, and that minute changed everything. 2 days after I left, I realized I'd forgotten something. My passport. It was buried in the second drawer of my desk upstairs, wedged between a broken flashlight and the receipts I always told myself I'd sort through someday. I had a work-related trip coming up, and even though the last thing I wanted to do was step back into that house, I figured I'd be in and out in 5 minutes. I texted her. "Me. Coming by to grab my passport. Don't need to talk. Just in and out." She didn't respond. Not that I expected her to. I parked outside like I was visiting a stranger. The porch light was off this time, small detail, but it hit me. That light used to always be on. I stepped inside with my own copy of the key, walked quickly past the living room, and went straight to the office. Everything looked the same, except it didn't. Something about the stillness felt different, like the house itself was holding its breath. I opened the drawer and grabbed my passport. Simple. Done. But when I pushed the drawer closed, it stuck. Typical, the metal slider always jammed. So I pulled it open again to adjust the folder underneath and saw it. A small black envelope. It had my name on it. Except, it wasn't my name. It was his. Derek. I froze. It was her handwriting. No question. I'd seen those rounded E's and dramatic loops in birthday cards and post-it notes on the fridge for nearly a decade. My throat tightened. My hand hovered over it, then dropped. I shouldn't read it. I really shouldn't. But I did. And what I read, It shattered every last excuse I had been trying to make for her. Derek, I wish I could tell you this face to face, but I'm a coward. Maybe that's who I've always been. I told myself this thing between us started by accident. Didn't. I sought it. I needed it. You made me feel alive when everything else felt muted. I know what we have isn't perfect, it's chaotic and wrong and stolen. But I don't care anymore. I want to stop pretending. I want you. Completely. I'm going to tell him. Soon. Please be patient with me. And I read it 3 times. Slowly. Carefully. Making sure I wasn't imagining it. That I hadn't misread a single word. I want you. Completely. I'm going to tell him. Please be patient with me. That wasn't a woman caught in a mistake. That was a woman making plans. Everything she had told me. That it was a fling, that she didn't mean for it to happen, that she didn't know what she wanted. It was all a story. A sanitized, prepackaged script designed to preserve my sympathy long enough for her to manage the fallout. But this letter? This was the unedited version. And for the first time I felt something new. Not grief, not sadness, but clarity. She wasn't lost. She wasn't confused. She was calculated. She was choosing him. And I had just been the contingency plan. The soft place to land if it all went wrong. I put the letter back in the envelope. I didn't take a picture. I didn't pocket it. I wanted her to know I'd seen it. I wanted her to wake up the next morning, check that drawer and realize. So I placed it carefully on the desk. And I wrote 4 words underneath, on a sticky note I found in the drawer. He deserves the truth. That's all. No drama. No screaming match. Just truth returned to sender. I walked out of that house for the last time, not because I was broken, but because I was finally whole enough to leave. But here's the thing. You think this kind of story ends there, with closure, with silence, with moving on. But no, because life doesn't let go cleanly. She lied. I left. But then I returned home to grab my passport, and instead, I found a letter she'd written to him. A confession of her love. Planned to leave me. No confusion. No regret. Just calculated betrayal. I left that letter where she could see I'd found it and walked away, thinking I was finally done. But like I said, life doesn't hand you a clean exit. Not when someone else has a stake in the story. The knock came on a rainy Friday evening. I'd been staying in a short-term rental near my office. Some dingy 2-room apartment above a flower shop that smelled like potpourri and floor cleaner. It wasn't home, but at least no one there lied to me. I was half asleep on the couch when the knock came. Firm. Not aggressive, but definite. The kind of knock that tells you whoever's on the other side isn't just passing by. I pulled open the door. There he was. Derek. Rain soaking his hoodie, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, and a look on his face like someone who'd finally realized the fire he was dancing around wasn't just warm. It burned. Before I could say a word, he spoke. She lied to me too. I didn't move. Didn't invite him in. I just stared. She told me she was going to leave you, that she had already told you everything, that you were okay, that you were moving on. I raised an eyebrow. You thought I was okay? He gave a bitter laugh. Yeah, that's the part one should have known was bull. He stopped himself, glanced down. I didn't come here to fight. And yet you're here, I said. He dropped the bag to the floor, water pooling around it. I thought I understood who she was. I really did. She told me things about your marriage, about you, that I believed. I shouldn't have. I get that now. I finally stepped aside. You might as well come in before the neighbors think I'm hosting a soap opera in the hallway. He walked in slowly, looked around like he expected the walls to have pictures of her. But there were none. Just blankness and rented furniture. I offered him nothing. No chair, no coffee. I just leaned against the counter and waited. He looked at me, and for once he didn't look smug. He looked wrecked. I just wanted you to know, he said quietly. I ended it. For good. I stared at him. What do you want me to say? Thanks? No. I don't want your forgiveness, he said. But maybe I needed your, I don't know, honesty. I tilted my head. You mean the thing she never gave either of us? He nodded. And that's when I did something I didn't expect. I told him everything. Not for him. For me. I told him about the photo I took. The letter I wrote. The way she cried without tears. The letter she left for him and how I found it. And the note I left behind. I told him about the things she used to say to me, the little inside jokes she probably recycled with him. And I told him the exact moment I realized she wasn't a lost soul looking for meaning. She was a liar looking for control. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he sat down. Silent. Processing. She told me I was the only one who made her feel real, he finally said. But now I think she just wanted to see if she still had power over someone. I nodded. She did. He looked up. Over you too? For a while, I admitted. But not anymore. He stood. I don't know what to do now. I shrugged. Do what I did. Start over. Just don't start with someone else's wife next time. That made him flinch. But he took it. No defense. No argument. Just a man standing in the ashes of a fantasy. Before he left, he looked at me and said, "You deserved better. I just didn't want to believe it until now." He walked out into the rain. And for the first time in weeks, I closed the door and didn't feel like I was the one who'd been left behind. Came the next morning. A letter. From her this time. Like the pain loops on itself. But I promise you, there is an end. And if you've stuck around this long, I want you to hear how mine arrived, and how I chose to write the final sentence my way. The morning after Derek showed up. Drenched, defeated, and done. I woke up to an envelope slipped under the door of my rental. No knock. No text. No call. Just quiet paper and the same familiar handwriting I used to associate with birthday cards and sweet notes in packed lunches. It was her. Natalie. She wrote me a letter. 8 pages. Front and back. Neatly folded. No perfume. No dramatic ink color. Just black pen on white paper, like the weight of it was heavy enough without anything extra. She told me everything. How it started. When it started. How she let herself believe it wasn't really cheating because she hadn't gone all the way in the beginning. As if emotional betrayal is a lesser knife. She said she hated herself for it. That the more she fell for Derek, the more hollow she felt. That she missed the version of herself that existed when she was with me. The version that felt safe, grounded, real. She said she never stopped loving me. But that she let herself chase something else because she was bored of being loved quietly. There were apologies, yes. Many. Some that sounded sincere. Others that felt like reflex. But here's the strange part. I didn't feel angry. I didn't cry. I didn't even read it twice. Because by then I had already moved on. And no, not into someone else's arms. Not into a rebound or a new lease on romantic life. I moved on into myself. Into the quiet mornings with black coffee and no eggshells. Into long walks with no route and even longer showers where I didn't feel dirty from someone else's lies. I started writing again. Not just to vent, but to breathe. I reached out to old friends I had stopped texting because I'd been too busy making things work. With someone who didn't respect me. I forgave myself for staying too long. And more importantly, I forgave the version of me who didn't yet know what the truth looked like. I didn't reply to her letter. I didn't need to. Some stories aren't meant to be rewritten. They're meant to end, so new ones can begin. 3 months later, I moved out of that rental. Got a new place closer to the mountains, with creaky floors and a leaky faucet, but something beautiful too. Peace. I hung new photos. None of them with people. Just skies, roads, trees, things that don't lie. And now I wake up grateful. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it did and I survived it. So if you're watching this and you're in the middle of your own version of this story, I promise you, there is life on the other side of heartbreak. There is peace after the storm. There is laughter after silence. There is you after them. You just have to walk through it to get there. This has been Reddit Confessions. Thank you for listening to my story. If any part of it hit home for you, I'd love to hear from you. Share a moment in the comments that stuck with you most, or tell us about a time you found unexpected strength in the middle of chaos. And if you're still holding on to someone who's already let go, remember, the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. Until next time, Stay honest, stay strong, and subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more true stories that remind us we're never alone.